Our core belief is that private enterprise is the cornerstone of a prosperous and free society, and we seek to foster the entrepreneurial spirit to stimulate economic prosperity and improve the lives of people around the world. So how do we do that? Well, we do a lot of different things. Really, the basic operating model that we have is to leverage cutting-edge research to develop and promote innovative market-based solutions for vital economic issues. So I want to begin by thanking the people who have made this conference happen and letting you know who they are so that you can thank them as well. So first of all, this conference couldn't have happened without the amazing staff of the Kenan Institute. So Mackenzie Babb, our Director of External Affairs, and the rest of the EA team, and especially Sydney Bannerman, who's the primary event planner for the conference here. Ashley Brown, our Director of Research Services, and the rest of the research team, and also David Knowles, our Director of Business Development, and his team. So if I could get the Kenan Institute staff to stand so you can see who they are, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask them and also thank them. So just as important are the members of the program committee, and a full list is in the back of the program, but I especially want to recognize those from our partner schools. So Steve Kaplan and Starr Marcello from the University of Chicago Polsky Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, David Su from the Wharton School, David Robinson from Duke University Innovation and Entrepreneurship, Tom Byers, Kathy Eisenhart, and Chuck Easley from Stanford's Technology Ventures program, Olaf Sorensen from Yale School of Management, and Chris Bingham, Ted Zoller, and Vicki Gibbs from UNC Kenan-Flagler. So let's thank them for their hard work too. And finally, we're tremendously thankful for the support of our sponsors. We literally wouldn't be able to do this without them. The Deshpande Foundation, Knight Foundation, Ripple, Silicon Valley Bank, the Small Business Investor Alliance, VentureWell, and Vista Equity Partners. So thank you very much to our sponsors. So in addition to these sponsors, we also want to thank the Kauffman Foundation for their support of our translational research efforts. So thanks to Kauffman, in each of the sessions, there will be a promising young scholar from a top PhD program taking notes and asking questions. And then after the conference, these students will be further researching the issues discussed and pulling together short articles that will then be shared back out via the website. So more to come on this shortly. And this brings me to another very special part of this conference. So the goal of this gathering is not so much to look at the past and rehash research looking at historical findings or even to think a lot about the present. It's really to look forward and think about the future. We're really interested in questions like, what is the future role of entrepreneurship in the economy broadly? What are the challenges? What do we need to learn about so we can encourage innovative entrepreneurial activity that betters everyone in society, not just people here in the US, but people around the world and of all types. In essence, we want to think much more about what's on the horizon. What are the frontiers of entrepreneurship? And a very specific charge to all of you is help us flesh out these questions. There's only one hard deliverable for the workshop sessions, and each is to provide at least one important question for future research that we will include in our small grants RFP following the conference. And if you want to see some of the previous research questions that we funded, they're in the back of the program, last year's are. So we need every one of you to put on your thinking caps and help us identify what the most pressing issues are for future research. So that's a big part of why we are here, but why are we here, as in here in Palm Beach, besides the 75-degree weather, of course. So I want to give a quick history lesson. For those of you that are new to the conference, some of you already know this, but as you might guess, it starts out in North Carolina. So the Kenan family has been an important force in UNC for more than 200 years. So three Kenan brothers, Thomas, Felix, and William, immigrated from Ireland and settled in eastern North Carolina in the 1730s. Thomas Kenan's son, General James Kenan, who is pictured here in the upper right, served as a Revolutionary War leader and then as a founding trustee of the University of North Carolina in 1789. Fast forwarding to the 20th century, in 1901, Mary Lily Kenan married Henry Flagler, and the two are pictured here in the upper left corner. So Henry Flagler is probably best known as a co-founder of Standard Oil with John Rockefeller, but after completing his involvement with Standard Oil, he became an investor in the Atlantic Coast Line Railroad, which came down the coast and terminated in Jacksonville, Florida. He saw the opportunity to continue the expansion southward, and he launched the Florida East Coast Railway, which opened up Central and South Florida as a winter destination for Northeasterners and as a new frontier for American commerce. So to support the railroad, Henry Flagler invested in Florida real estate, built a string of prominent hotels along the route, extending from St. Augustine all the way down to Coral Gables, and the Breakers is the only one of those hotels to remain open today. So as a wedding present for Lily, he also built a personal mansion, Whitehall, which is now the Flagler Museum, which is located across the street here and on the bay side, and I encourage any of you that have time to get over there to visit it. It's a really interesting place. So Mary Lily Kenan survived Henry. She had no children of her own. She divided her fortune between her brother William R. Kenan and his two sisters. This led to the founding of the William R. Kenan Jr. Charitable Trust in 1965, which focused on education and established 56 college professorships, including many institutions that are represented in this room. In 1985, William's cousin and successful entrepreneur Frank Hawkins Kenan founded the Kenan Institute of Private Enterprise. So fortunately for us, the Breakers is still owned and operated by the Kenan family, so we get to enjoy this great place. So you can sort of see how appropriate it is that we have a conference on the Frontiers of Entrepreneurship at a place that was founded and still operated by a family who literally undertook entrepreneurial activities extending the frontiers of American commerce. So with that backdrop, I'm excited to turn things over to some of my UNC colleagues for a big announcement. Over the last few years, we've noticed that there is a real desire to continue the conversations that we have here at the conference and spread that knowledge gained more widely. While we've been creating and collecting a lot of information, we've been thinking about how to more effectively share that work that's being done in the academy and government agencies and by various think tanks. So a big part of this effort is taking the raw material from data and research and condensing it and translating it into information for practitioners and policymakers and the general public. And another big part of this effort is thinking about how to provide amplification of that. So once we have the information in the right form, how do we get it into the hands of the right people? So with this in mind, we're excited to announce the inaugural Trends in Entrepreneurship report. So this report has ended up being a substantial amount of work for dozens of people involved with creating it, but it's my pleasure right now to introduce two of the key partners who helped bring this report to life. So first, Chris Bingham is the Hettleman Distinguished Scholar of Strategy and Entrepreneurship at UNC Kenan-Flagler Business School. In fact, this conference is his brainchild. Chris is an award-winning researcher and teacher. He's published in every top academic journal in the fields of strategy and entrepreneurship. He worked at McKinsey & Company, Deloitte Consulting, and PW before receiving his PhD at Stanford. And he frequently works with senior executives at many of the world's leading companies. Vicki Gibbs serves as executive director of Kenan Institute's Entrepreneurship Center at UNC's Kenan-Flagler Business School. So Vicki brings to bear more than 20 years of broad-based experience with entrepreneurial ventures in software and technology companies. She's previously worked with a number of high-tech startups, including OpenSite, Art.com, and Motricity. So Chris and Vicki, I know we are all excited to hear more about the Trends Report.
How's everybody doing today? Can y'all hear me? Great. Well, thank y'all for being here. As Greg said, I'm Vicki Gibbs. I'm the Executive Director for the Entrepreneurship Center at UNC. And I want to first tell y'all a little bit about why I'm here, because it's directly relevant to this report. So spending more than 20 years in any place, you start to see different trends. So I'm sure all of you kind of experience this. So if you're in a place, and what I really experienced in the startup world as an entrepreneur and a leader of high-tech startups is I start to see some common challenges and issues that folks had. Two of the hot buttons for me were diversity and entrepreneurship and pathways for students to be young talent in startups. And these were two problems that I really wanted to help solve. But what I quickly found was that as an individual, I could only have, there we go, sorry about that. I could only have so much impact as one person. But I also knew that if I could find others with a shared vision and a shared passion for fixing those problems, that we could have a greater impact. So that's one of the reasons that led me back to one of my alma maters, is that Kenan-Flagler did share that vision to help with those two problems. And I think most of you here in this room, you do your work because you want to help solve problems. You don't do work just to create reports or to create work and sit in your office. You actually create work to actually get it out there in the public and actually create a better world. So that's why I'm here. I think that's why y'all are here, and that's a big reason why we developed this report. So officially announcing the Trends in Entrepreneurship report. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this by explaining 3 whys. First of all, why entrepreneurship? So this is a pretty easy crowd to say this to, but entrepreneurship is really important. Y'all, it is a key driver for not only our US economy, but the world economy. If you look at startups and high growth companies, they disproportionately create value or do value creation as well as job creation more so than other businesses. So if we don't have an environment that is really supportive of new firm creation and growth, it actually has detrimental impacts to our economy, which is not good. So entrepreneurship is very important. It's something we should be studying. It's something we should be really talking about. Second, why a report? And this is really about how you use it. So if you think about it, how much misinformation is there out there, right? How much clickbait is someone just putting an opinion out there for people to get media hype and buzz? And how do you really sort of let the expert voice rise above all of the noise? That is really the purpose for this report. What we are doing with this report is it is a collection. It is not just our research. It is a collaboration between multiple researchers. We had an advisory committee that contributed data, contributed expert insights into this, and our goal is that this is a body of truth that leaders who are making decisions that not only impacts themselves and their businesses, but also everyone's future, can then reference this as they navigate this really challenging world of today. So why now? Well, the world is changing faster than ever. As y'all know, there are a lot of challenges that a lot of businesses have, and we have together. And there's a lot of people here who have knowledge about how to impact those things in a positive way. Again, if we each do it as individuals, we're not necessarily going to have the greater impact to really have that positive world change. But by working together, we can. So let me talk about a few examples of just kind of what's going on in the world today and why it's really important that we can help get the right information in the right hands of decision makers. So first of all, one example is the future of work. So if you look at the future of work, we have 2 major things changing simultaneously. We have the workers themselves. So you have the baby boomers that are retiring and moving out. We have the next generation of young people who've never known a world without technology, who are going to be the largest percentage of our workforce soon. They need different things. So how do startups attract talent? How do they retain talent for this new set of workforce? Secondly, jobs are changing, right? There are jobs today that did not exist 5 years ago. There are going to be jobs in 10 years that don't exist today. How do we enable leaders of those companies to stay nimble? And these are some of the questions that we're tackling. Another question is diversity in entrepreneurship. So there's lots of research that says diverse teams perform better profits, better revenues. However, still less than 5% of VC funding goes to women and minority founders. That is part in due to the fact that the VC and investment community is still underrepresented. However, we can't just say, hey, there's a diversity problem. We actually need to help provide information that helps people get better, and that's what we can do together. The good news is that there's actually more growth in the area of the number of women and minority founders. So the other thing that we need to do is make sure that our entrepreneurial ecosystems are set up so that all founders can thrive. Some other questions that we start to tackle in the report are things about government regulation. What's going on? Is that helping or is it hurting? Regulators that are having to make policy for some of these new industries, what can we do to help them learn from the past? Because they will make policy decisions that can either stimulate or stifle growth. So it's very important that they have the information that is in the hands of experts. And that just really, it's the tip of the iceberg. There's basic questions like, how do you define entrepreneurship? What do you measure? We still lack appropriate data sources to really accurately measure things. And then there's the question of, is entrepreneurship in decline? And people disagree on that point. So our report is really this collaboration and co-creation starting to tackle some of these issues. What you have on your table is just a summary. It is just a sampling. And I encourage you to dive into that summary, but more importantly, there is a URL to download it that's also available there. So, but this is what we need to do together. The report itself is over 100, it's a 100-page slide deck. There's a lot of info in there. But we need your help to continue this work. So this is how you can get involved and how we can work together to help make positive change. So we want you to contribute to the report. Again, the report that you will download, and does everyone see the things on their table, the summary? Okay, all right, great. So excellent. Thank you for holding it up. So how many of y'all have information that you think can contribute to a body of work like this? How many of you? Raise your hands. There's researchers, there's industry people, great. Y'all are all doing work in this space. We want to hear from you. We would love for you to submit trends that we can include in the next report. This submission process for the academics is going to seem similar to submitting to a journal. For those who are not in academia, this is similar to submitting something for a speaking engagement. It should not be a heavy lift. And what we want to do through this report is we are going to collaborate, we are going to put these things together, and that it is our role to amplify this and get this in the hands of the audiences that can use it. It is those leaders who are making decisions about startups, those leaders who are making decisions about policy, those leaders who are making decisions about ecosystems. And this is the thing that we can do together. So, what I would like to do now is I'm going to hand it off to Chris. He's actually going to talk to us a little bit about how all of y'all can start to talk about this report and how it can be integrated into what we are doing here. But before that, I do want to say a second thank you to Ashley Brown and her research team, David, Juan, and Sarah. They did the heavy lifting in this report, and it has really been an amazing job. And next, I want to thank Mackenzie and Callie Brawl, who runs marketing for the Entrepreneurship Center. Their work is going to be this next phase, not only making the summary as well as the report look spectacular, but it is in their hands and our hands to get this in the audiences that can use it. So I look forward to seeing your contributions. I look forward to hearing your feedback about the report, and thank you so much for being a part of this. Chris?
We on now? There we go. We're delighted to be with you. How many of you, if this is your first time here at this conference, will you please stand? That is awesome. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Those of you that are sitting, thank you. Those of you that are sitting, thanks for coming back. We're delighted to have you. You have been handpicked. Every one of you. So I want to address why you. Why you? We brought you here not because you know each other, but because you don't know each other. Years ago, a sociologist at Stanford named Mark Granovetter wrote a very influential piece of research called The Strength of Weak Ties. The Strength of Weak Ties. Now, Mark was curious about how people found jobs, And the prevailing wisdom at the time is that you found them through want ads in the newspaper. And Mark's insight was, no, you're actually more likely to find jobs, especially better jobs, through friends, and more specifically, friends of friends. Now, you might say, yeah, I kind of know that, so where's the insight? Well, think about it from a social network point of view. If I took your social network from Facebook, your nodes and your connections among those nodes, and then I took the social network of a colleague of yours, someone that you hang out with, maybe you vacation together, maybe you go to lunch together a lot, and I took their social network, their nodes and their connections among those nodes, and I mapped those two networks on top of each other, what are you likely to see? High redundancy, high overlap. In fact, that's not very great from a novelty point of view. In fact, most people's social networks, there's about a 50 to 70% overlap. That's not great. That's not great. So we've deliberately brought you here because you are often weak ties. You span worlds. You are social brokers. You can help us reach the frontiers. In fact, that's one of the primary values of networks. Networks push us to our knowledge frontiers. They expose our biases and our blind spots. They reveal our unknown unknowns. So that's why you're here. Not only to strengthen those strong ties, but more particularly to create those weak ties. Bridge those worlds, because that's where we're really going to get some wonderful insights. So we're delighted that you're here. Thank you for being here. Make connections. Connect with new people at breaks, at your tables, in sessions, at dinner. Really try to forge those ties, because that's going to help us push those frontiers, and that's the whole purpose of this conference. I am delighted to introduce